Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We are continuing to learn halachos Tisha B'Av. We will be learning today Mirz Hashem Daf Lamed Amid Aleph. We pick up on the very bottom line of Chaf Tes Amid Beis, in the middle of Siman Taf Kuf Nun Beis Sif Yud Aleph, where we'll just read the Mechaber for the beginning of the Sif for the sake of continuity. So the Mechaber had said, Misha Kibel Alav Taina Sheni V'Chamishi Kol Yomais Hashana. If somebody accepted upon himself to fast every Monday and Thursday throughout the year, that's something that some tzaddikim do. They fast every Monday, every Thursday during the day throughout the year. So if somebody was mekabel that, ve'era erev Tisha B'Av lihiyos b'sheni, and now this year it fell out that erev Tisha B'Av happens to be on a Monday. So now he has a problem, because if he's going to be mekayim his Kabbalah and he's going to fast on Monday, that means he has to fast Erev Tisha B'Av, he has to fast the night of Tisha B'Av and the day of Tisha B'Av. That's 2 days and an intervening night. That's going to be very difficult for him. So the Mechaber says, what should he do? Yishael al Nidroi, he should go to a Chacham and he should be Matir Neder so that he does not have to fast on that day. Or alternatively, says the Mechaber, Yilvet Ta'anisoi. What he could do is he could borrow his tainus, meaning that really he's not supposed to eat on that Erev Tisha B'Av because it's a Monday, but he'll eat, upayreya, and then he'll pay back the tainus. Now, in order to hold like the Mechaber, what the Mechaber is saying is, even though this fellow was mekabel on himself to fast every Monday and every Thursday, still, since over here we have a pressing circumstance, because Monday is Erev Tisha B'Av, he could eat on that Monday and he could pay back that tainus by fasting on another different day, even though that day may not be a Monday. So the fact that he was mekabel on himself to fast every Monday and every Thursday, the Mechaber is looking at it that at least in a Shas Adchak, in a pressing circumstance like this, we're not going to be so medayik on him that he has to fast on a Monday. He could be malave, he could borrow the tainus, he could eat on that Monday of Pereya and pay it back. However, says the Ramah, and this is where we left off yesterday, Hagah, the Geonim write that if this occurs, if somebody was mekabel to fast Monday and Thursday, and Monday is Erev Tisha B'Av, dimisane ad achar tfilas mincha. What this individual should do is he should not do like the Mechaber and borrow the tainus and repay the tainus. No, what he should do is he should fast, because he was mekabel to fast every Monday, and today's a Monday, so he has to fast. But he can't fast the entire tainus, so what he should do is the misana ad achar tfilas mincha. He should fast at least until after he davens mincha, and then va'oichel seudah hamafsekes kaidem bias hashemesh, and then he should eat the seudah hamafsekes right before shkia, right before bein hashmoshes. And he brings this down from the guys Ashri, the Mardechai, the Trumas Adeshen, v'chein noyagin, and the Ramah says, and indeed, that's the way we're noyag if somebody has this particular issue. Says the Mishnah Berurah on Oiskat and Chav Zayin here on Lamed Amud Aleph, v'oichel seudah hamafsekes, after mincha he'll eat the seudah hamafsekes. Now, in this case, remember, we said yesterday, the Ramah said that really the best way to comport yourself on Erev Tisha B'Av is you should eat a larger seudah before mincha, and then and in that seudah, that's not your seudah hamafsekes. So in that seudah, you could have shnei tavshilin. You don't have to be makbid on all of the hakpados of the seudah hamafsekes. And then after mincha, you eat the seudah hamafsekes, and that's when you just have bread and an egg, and you can't have shnei tavshilin, etc., etc. That's your seudah hamafsekes. But in this case, where the person has to fast on Erev Tisha B'Av until mincha because he was mekabel on himself to fast every Monday, in that case, says the Chavetz Chaim, va'aser lisoid shnei pamim. This person is not going to be allowed to have two seudas. He's not going to be able to have a seudah before mincha and a seudah after mincha. Mishum nidroi, because of his neder, because of his Kabbalah, not to fast on Monday. Vim kain, and therefore, if so, tzarech linag b'kol din seudah hamafsekes ha'omer l'mayla. So when he eats the one seudah that he's going to eat after mincha, he has to be mekayim all of the halachos of the seudah hamafsekes, because that's going to be his only seudah today. The Ramah said that he will have to eat that seudah hamafsekes kaidem bias hashemesh, right before shkia. Now, says the Chavetz Chaim Lamaisa, Ulefi she'i efshar letzamtzem kol kach la'acher ha'achila. Since it's very, very hard, this person really has a conundrum. Really, he's not supposed to eat today at all, because really it's a Monday and he's supposed to fast, and he's supposed to complete his fast. Because it's a Shas Chak, we're allowing him to eat a little bit early. We're allowing him to eat his seudah hamafsekes, but we really want him to delay that seudah hamafsekes as late as possible. However, the Chavetz Chaim says it's very hard to know exactly what does that mean. Exactly how much is he going to delay his meal? At what time is he actually going to sit down and eat that meal? Therefore, mutav yaiser sheyishal al nidroi. Therefore, the Chavetz Chaim brings down from the Magen Avram that really the best eitzah is that this person who went ahead and was makabel to fast every Monday, he should go to a chacham and he should be matir neder if Tisha B'Av falls out on a Monday. Ends off the Ramah, second line down in the Shulchan Aruch. For who hadin, the same halachos would apply. Misha mesana tanis chaloim. If somebody is fasting a tainus for a chaloim, somebody had a dream that disturbs him, and he wants to do a tainus chaloim to eradicate that dream, and now the tainus chaloim is going to fall out in the erev Tisha B'Av. Again, the Ramah says really you should do the same thing. He should fast as late as possible and eat a seudah hamafsekes right by the tchilas hashkia. Says the Chavetz Chaim, is katan chavtes tainus chaloim. For who hadin yartzeit. The same thing would apply to somebody who fasts on the day of the yartzeit that he has for a parent. If the yartzeit is erev Tisha B'Av, again the same halachos apply. But says the Chavetz Chaim Lamaisa, the toiv, the best practice would be if somebody has a yartzeit for a parent that's erev Tisha B'Av, and if it's erev Tisha B'Av, that means his yartzeit is ches ba'av. It's the 8th day of Av. So every year that's erev Tisha B'Av. The toiv, the best thing would be sheyasne bepam rishona. The very first time that he fasts on the yartzeit, he should accept upon himself with a tanai. He should accept the practice of fasting on the yartzeit with a condition. Shaloi lihisanos rak ad achar chatzos hayom. He shouldn't accept as a minig that he's always going to fast on the day of the yartzeit a complete tainus. Instead, the minig he should accept upon himself is to make a chatzi yom tainus. He should fast half the day until chatzos. V'yispal mincha gedola, and then he should daven mincha at mincha gedola, a half hour after chatzos. V'yoichal seudah, and then he should eat the first seudah that the Ramah spoke about that you eat on erev Tisha B'Av, the larger seudah that's not the seudah hamafsekes. V'achakach, and then after mincha yoichal seudah hamafsekes, he'll eat the seudah hamafsekes. 3 lines down in the Shulchan Aruch, Sif Yud Beis. Ein oimrim tchina erev Shabbos, erev Tisha B'Av b'mincha. We do not say tachnun by mincha on erev Tisha B'Av. I know there are different minhagim. People who daven Nusach Ashkenaz, they say tachnun every day by mincha. And when it comes to Nusach Sfard, I'll quote a well-known Rav. A Rav once told me he sees that there are 2 minhagim by people that daven Nusach Sfard. One minig is to say tachnun by mincha, and the other minig is to not to say tachnun. It's like the people who don't say tachnun by mincha, those who daven nusach sfard and don't say tachnun by mincha every day, they're eish lahava. They keep that minig very, very strongly. But in any case, whatever your minig you have, ein oimrim tchina erev Tisha B'Av b'mincha. Erev Tisha B'Av by mincha you do not say tachnun mishum de ikri moyed, because we find that the pasuk refers to Tisha B'Av as a moyed, as a Yom Tov, and Yehi Ratzain should be the will of the Rabbeinu Shalom that Tisha B'Av should be turned into a moyed. It should be turned back into a day of simcha and sasain. We should never have to keep another Tisha B'Av. The Rebbeinu Shalom should bring the Beis Hamikdash to be a Yisrael Tzedek b'meheri v'yameinu. Ve'imhu Shabbos. If Erev Tisha B'Av is Shabbos, ein oimrim tzid kascha. We don't say tzid kascha by mincha. Says the Mishnah Berurah is katan lamin, ein oimrim tzid kascha. Ve'imchal Tisha B'Av b'Shabbos. On a year when Tisha B'Av itself falls out on Shabbos, oimrim av harachamim. We say av harachamim, even though Tisha B'Av is called a moyed, still we say av harachamim. Brings this down from Nilya Rabbah. The cause of a Prima Godim is Siman Tavkuf Nun Test. The Prima Godim writes, the Shloimer the Gamkein Maskirin the Shammais, those who say Kel Mole by Mincha, they could say the Kel Mole, Oisan and Oyhagin Lahaskir B'chol Shabbos. Now we go to Siman Tafkuf Nun Gimel. Din seudah hamafsekes. We continue discussing different halachos of the seudah hamafsekes. Uboy beis seifim, and here we have two seifim. It says the Mechaber Sif Aleph. Af al pi she'achal seudah hamafsekes. So now it's Erev Tisha B'Av, and you've already eaten the seudah hamafsekes. Says the Mechaber, even though you concluded the seudah hamafsekes, which is supposed to be the last meal before the tainus, so you ate your seudah hamafsekes, mutter lachzor v'lechol, you're allowed to eat again. Don't think that once you eat the seudah hamafsekes, now suddenly you're already asur ba'achila. It's like the tainus already began. No, you're still allowed to eat after you conclude the seudah hamafsekes. Ela im kein kibel alav beferish shaloi lechol oid hayoim. Unless you made a verbal declaration, we'll see if it's verbal or it could be even believe, but unless you accepted upon yourself already that you are no longer going to eat today. If you accepted upon yourself, you ate the seudah hamafsekes, and you said, okay, that's it, no more eating, I'm not eating anymore, then you can no longer eat. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Aleph, Ela im kein kibel alav beferish shaloi lechol, unless you accepted upon yourself clearly, beferish, that you're no longer going to eat. V'hu adin im amar shabakabel alav hatainis gam kein aser. This is a very interesting distinction that the Chavetz Chaim makes over here. The words of the Mechaber was, you're allowed to eat after you've concluded the seudah hamafsekes, unless you are makabel on yourself that you will no longer eat. Says the Chavetz Chaim, that halacha is true not only if you are makabel on yourself that you will no longer eat, it's also true if you are makabel the tainus. If you said I'm being makabel the tainus, you're also not allowed to eat. Now, why would we think otherwise? If you say that you're being makabel the tainus, doesn't that mean that you're accepting upon yourself that you're not going to eat? Why would we think otherwise? So I think the explanation is because kabbalas hatainus. Where else do we find this phraseology of kabbalas hatainus? Somebody who accepts upon himself a private fast day, he's makabel the tainus by mincha the day before. So let's say somebody was makabel on himself that he's going to fast on a particular Monday. So Sunday by mincha, he's makabel tainus. Now, that doesn't mean he can't eat Sunday night. He could eat Sunday night. He's being makabel the tainus Sunday by mincha for Monday. So you might think over here also, maybe if somebody says on Erev Tisha B'Av after the seudah hamafsekes, I'm makabel the tainus, maybe that doesn't mean that he's makabel the tainus and the tainus begins right now. Maybe it means that he's being makabel the tainus on himself now for tomorrow. But really, he could still eat until the Zman. So says the Chavetz Chaim, no. When the Mechaber says that if you're makabel on yourself that you will no longer eat after the seudah hamafsekes, you can't eat, the same halacha holds true if you say that you're being makabel the tainus. Why? Explains the Chavetz Chaim, Devadai kavanasai shaloi lechol oid hayoim. If somebody says after the seudah hamafsekes, that's it, I'm being makabel the tainus, clearly what he means is that he's no longer going to eat. Okay. Says the Ramah. So the Mechaber said that if you're makabel the tainus beferish, if you're makabel beferish that you're no longer going to eat, so then you can't eat. Says the Ramah, the kabbalah balev eino kabbalah. The Ramah says, when the Mechaber says that if you're makabel that you will no longer eat, you can't eat anymore, that's a verbal declaration. But a kabbalah balev, if you just thought in your mind, okay, I'm makabel not to eat anymore, if it's a kabbalah balev, the Ramah says, Einoi kabbalah, that does not constitute a kabbalah satainus, el tzarich lo yitziyai bisvasav. He brings down from the Beis Yosef, who brings it down in the name of the Poskim, that does not constitute a Kabbalah. The only Kabbalah is a verbal Kabbalah. So says the Ramah. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says a nice cut and base. Kabbalah balev ain't a Kabbalah. A mental Kabbalah does not constitute a Kabbalah. That's the opinion of the Ramah. However, v'abach kosav the heavy Kabbalah. The Bach says that this non-verbal Kabbalah, the Kabbalah that you made in your mind, does constitute a Kabbalah. V'chein hiskim hagra b'Berurah, and the Gra and the Berurah concurs and he agrees with the Bach that if you did accept upon yourself no longer to eat in your mind, that does constitute a Kabbalah. V'aser az kol masha aser b'Tisha B'Av. And at that point in time, where you thought in your mind, okay, that's it, I'm makabel the tainus, you're not only aser ba'achila, not only can you no longer eat, you're also aser in all of the other inuyim of Tisha B'Av. You can't eat, you can't drink, no sicha, no tashmish amita. So you're also in everything, chutz mini'ilas asandal, with the exception of wearing shoes, the mutter. You still could wear shoes. Why? How come the other 4 inuyim are chal on you right away with this mental kabbalah and ni'ilas asandal are not? The heavy ki'ilu histe beferish chutz mizeh, because you're wearing shoes. If you ate the seudah hamafsekes and you were wearing shoes, and then after the seudah hamafsekes, you finished, you benched, and you thought to yourself, okay, that's it, Tisha B'Av has started, the tinus has begun. So now you will makabel on yourself not to eat, not to drink, not to anoint yourself with anything, not to have marital relations. But we can't say that you will makabel on yourself not to wear shoes because you are wearing shoes. So that means clearly you didn't accept that upon yourself yet. Aval. But let's say you weren't makabel in your mind. It's not that in your mind you thought to yourself, I'm accepting upon myself the tinus. That's not what happened. What happened is, if even in your mind you didn't have in mind to accept upon yourself the tinus, you just had in your mind, okay, that's it, I'm not going to eat anymore. You hear the difference? The difference is there's 2 ways you could think about this. One is you could finish the seudah hamafsekes, you could bench, and then you could think to yourself, all right, I'm a kabbalah the tinus. Okay, so that, according to the Berurah, according to the Bach, that constitutes a kabbalah satinus. So now you're also in everything. But let's say you did, that's not what you thought. What you thought was, all right, I guess I'm finished eating. I guess I'm not going to eat anymore. That's not a kabbalah satinus. All that is you ate your seudah hamafsekes, you figured you weren't going to eat. If 5 minutes later you're thirsty, I guess you'll take a drink. So then, einoi klum, says the Chavetz Chaim, that's worthless. Umutter afilu ba'achili, you're still even allowed to eat and drink. Umikam nevertheless, halacha l'maisa, the Mishnah Berurah seems to be machriya here. Umikam nevertheless, nachain yoiser lahasnois beferish bapeh ubalev. It would be best and proper that what somebody should do is he should express clearly, preferably verbally, or at least in his mind, that he is not accepting the tinus upon himself until the very beginning of the tinus, until after Shkia, with the beginning of Ben Hashmoshes. That would be the best thing. And that he brings down, who is he bringing this down for? He seems to bring this down from the Magen Avram, the Machzah Shekel. Yeah. Okay. Now we go to Sif Beis. Tisha B'Av, the fast of Tisha B'Av. Leiloi ki yoimoi l'chol davar. The night and the day have the same halachos completely. Vein oichlem elam ba'od yom. You're only allowed to eat while it's still day on Erev Tisha B'Av. Once you hit Bein Hashmoshes, going into Tisha B'Av, that's it. All of the Isurim of Tisha B'Av begin at the night, the same way they apply during the day. Ubein Hashmoshes Shaloi, that twilight period going into Tisha B'Av between Shkia and Seisa Chavim, Aser, they are forbidden in all of the prohibitions of Tisha B'Av, Ki Yom HaKippurim, the same way the halacha is on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, when does Yom Kippur start? It starts with Shkia. The Ben Hashmoshes time period of Yom Kippur night is Aser and everything. So to Tisha B'Av, the twilight period, the Ben Hashmoshes period, is Aser and everything. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Gimel, Ben Hashmoshes Shaloi Aser, Hainu Bein B'Knisasai, Ubein B'Yitziasai. This is true on Erev Tisha B'Av going into Tisha B'Av by night, and so to Matzai Tisha B'Av. Shkia on Matzai Tisha B'Av, everything remains prohibited until Tzeisak Chavim. Aval, however, there is a difference between Tisha B'Av and let's say Yom Kippur or Shabbos. Ein tzarich lahoisef aleim. We know on Shabbos there's a din of Tosefes Shabbos. You makabel Shabbos a little bit before Shkia, and then you don't make Ois Shabbos until a little bit after the Zman. On Tisha B'Av there's no Inyan of Hoisafa. You don't have to add on to Tisha B'Av. Vayin le'el b'simin reish samachalaf in Hilchos Shabbos to B'yarnu, where we explained the Ben Hashmoshes, when does the twilight period start? Nikra mishashaka achama, it begins with Shkia, v'hu adin be'inyanenu, and so to here by Tisha B'Av, the Ben Hashmoshes period begins with Shkia. Says the Ramah, Haga, umuter b'rechitza v'sicha uni'ilas hasandal ad Ben Hashmoshes. The same way you're allowed to eat and drink, you're also allowed to wash. You're also allowed to anoint yourself. You're also now allowed to wear shoes. all the way up until Shkia, until Ben Hashmashas. Miu, however, while these things are all mutter until the beginning of Ben Hashmashas, they're all mutter technically until Shkia. Miu, nevertheless, Bachayil, when Tisha B'Av falls out during the week, Noihagen, we are accustomed, Lachloitz min Olim, to take off our shoes, Kaidem Sheyomer Baruchu. So, even if you're in a place where they're davening Ma'ariv a little bit early, maybe they're davening Ma'ariv before Shkia. We know there are places that they do daven Ma'ariv before Shkia. Some places they daven Mincha, let's say the way many people do on Erev Shabbos during the summer. They daven Mincha before Plag HaMincha, and then they daven Ma'ariv after Plag HaMincha. So let's say you're in a place where they're davening Ma'ariv Tisha B'Av night before Shkia. So really, we said until Shkia, you're allowed to wear shoes. Nevertheless, says the Ramah, Miu, Bachayil, if Tisha B'Av falls out during the week, Neihagen, the minig is, Lach loitz minolim, to take off your shoes, Kaidem Sheyoma Baruchu, before you say Baruchu by Ma'ariv, even if it's still before Shkia. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Cotton Hay, Ois Cotton Dalit, Umutter berachitza, you're allowed to wash all the way until Ben Hashmashas, till Shkia. Kvar kasavda, we already wrote. Dim kibel olav la'achar shehifsik seudasai. If after the seudah hamafsekes you were already makabel the tinus, shaloi lochaloid, you were makabel, you accepted the tinus upon yourself right after you finished the seudah hamafsekes, even if it's before Shkia. So memela aser berachitza v'sicha gamkein, then you're aser in washing and anointing as well. However, you should know, that's only true if you ate the seudah hamafsekes after Plag HaMincha. If you ate the seudah hamafsekes after Plag HaMincha, and after the seudah hamafsekes you were makabel not to eat, then together with the Kabbalah not to eat comes the Kabbalah of the other prohibitions. You also can't anoint yourself, you also can't wash. But if you were makabel on yourself earlier in the day, before Plag HaMincha, you were makabel on yourself, that's it, I'm not eating anymore, then lav kabalahi, that's not considered a Kabbalah Satinus. You can't be makabel all of the Yisurim of Tisha B'Av at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Erev Tisha B'Av. It's not Tisha B'Av yet. You were makabel on yourself not to eat. All right, that already has a din like of a neder. So if you are makabel on yourself not to eat, you can no longer eat. But it doesn't drag with it the other prohibitions. If it's after Plag HaMincha, so that's a time that it's already appropriate that you theoretically could be makabel on yourself the prohibitions of Tisha B'Av. So if you were makabel on yourself not to eat, it drags with it the other Yisurim. But if it's before Plag HaMincha, it does not. So whatever you were makabel beferish, if you were makabel at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not going to eat, you can't eat. If you were makabel, I'm not going to wear shoes, you can't wear shoes. But nothing else gets dragged with it. The same thing would be true. If somebody accepted upon himself to be noyeg, like one of the shitas of the Mechaber that we saw earlier in Siman Taf Kuf Nun Aleph Sif Tes, where the Mechaber said that there are those that don't eat meat and don't drink wine for the entire 3 weeks. So if somebody was makabel on himself, okay, I'm being makabel on myself not to eat meat and not to drink wine for the entire 3 weeks, starting Shivasa B'Tammuz. He's not also makabel on himself not to take showers for the entire 3 weeks. He wasn't makabel that, so it doesn't automatically get pulled together with the other kabbalas. Whatever he was makabel, he was makabel. What he wasn't, he wasn't. Ois cotton hay, says the Mishnah Berurah. Our minig is to take off our shoes during the week before we say Baruchu by Ma'ariv, if we happen to be davening Ma'ariv Tisha B'Av night early. We're talking about a locale where their minig was to daven Ma'ariv before Shkia. But you have to take off your shoes before Baruchu, because once you say Baruchu, it's already considered night. Once you say Baruchu by Ma'ariv, it's already considered night in the context of this halacha of Tisha B'Av night that you can't wear shoes anymore. Uva Maharil Kasav, the Maharil writes, the Yesh Lachleitz Minolim, Koidim Shalach LaBeis HaKnesses, that you should really take off your shoes before you even go to shul. Certainly you have to make sure to take them off before Shkia. Okay? I have to stop a little bit early today, so I'm going to cut off over here. So we're on the bottom line of the Ramah, right by the Ois Cotton Vav, for the Ramah. That's what we'll pick up tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rabban should descend Yeshua's Refuas and Parnasa. The Rabban should bring the Bias Geld Tzedek and Herav Yameinu. Amen. Be well.